God in verse 1 reveals himself as creator. And then he says, we're going to make man in our image. So part of that image is that we are also creators. We have to create.
Oh, I love that.
We have to create. It's part of what God put inside of us. Then I think the other main reason is society is geared to separate us from our creativity. I mean, school, if you look at school, it's not about bringing out a child's creativity. It's about making them conform.
The Arts Council for Monterey County is here to invest in your creative future. If you're a student, your journey is just beginning. Apply now for college arts scholarships or raise your voice as the next Youth Poet Laureate. Honing your craft? The Arts Council for Monterey County offers individual artist grants and free BusinessWorks professional development workshops. From finding inspiration to building a career, the Arts Council for Monterey County is your creative partner. Learn more at arts4mc.org. That's arts4mc.org.
What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to Offline Expression. My name is Jeff Hinderscheid. I am your host. It's a beautiful Friday here in Central California, and we are back. Today, I am joined by an incredible guest, Mr. Rick Sorenson. Rick, will you please say hello to the people?
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Outstanding. Almost like you've done this before. I love it. Where are you coming in from, Rick?
Oh, I live in Boise, Idaho.
My son lives in Idaho. He lives in Meridian.
Well, that's just the next town over.
I know. He works in Boise. He was instrumental in the opening of a restaurant that belongs to a friend of his called the House of the Little Pig. You know that place?
No, I haven't been there, but now I have to go.
Now you'll have to go, and you'll have to say hello to my son Ryland. He's been over there for a couple of years now, and then he was working with them at another restaurant that the owners had, and then they opened this new one, and now they just had their 1-year anniversary of it being open. He would flip out if you said that we had talked, and that would be really cool, man. And he's there pretty much all the time. I think he's not there Sundays and Mondays, but he's there every other day. So if you get a chance to go by, since you're nearby, go in, tell him I said hi.
Oh, I will.
That's cool, man. Boise is a beautiful place. I've gotten a chance to visit. I loved it up there. About a 12-hour drive from me, so I decided to go with the flight because it was just a lot more convenient, a little bit shorter and all that jazz. So yeah. But I imagine it's getting warmer there, yeah?
Oh, a little bit. Cold is still lingering just a little bit, but we're supposed to be getting some warm weather next week.
Nice. Yeah, when I was there, it was during the summer, and it was like 110 or something, and I was like,
oh, yeah.
What is happening here?
Well,
how'd I escape that by leaving where I was at? Nope.
Well, Boise is the end of the high desert that starts way down in Mexico, goes up through Nevada, and it ends right here. And so it can get really hot.
Well, there you go. Yeah, it's extreme, right? Because it's pretty darn cold in the winter, too. It gets down to like the 20s, low 20s.
Really, Boise for winter. I mean, I grew up here, so we used to have regular winters, and and then I moved away. I grew up and I came back, and now everything's much more mild. And so really, if you live in the north, this is probably the place you want to be at because the winters are really fairly mild.
Oh, man. Yeah, and here, it's not too bad in comparison to everyone else. Like, we're not allowed to complain to anybody who actually has cold and stuff like that. So we try to keep that to ourselves. But Rick, thank you so much for joining us, man. We're really glad to have you on the show. So what I'd love to do is hear in your own words who you are what you do and tell us a little bit about what your experiences in your career. And I know that you're an author and an artist and all these things. So we want our audience to hear everything about you, man. You go ahead and take the floor.
All right. Well, as I said, I grew up here in Idaho. And so I've always loved art. From time I was 6, I thought I would be an artist. It was just what I always thought. And then in 7th grade is when I really began to learn the skills of art. Had a teacher that would, the first class, the teacher would put a white ball on a white piece of paper on a table, covered all the windows, turned out all the lights, put one light source shining down on that white ball, and then he showed us how to draw the ball. But really, it's not drawing the ball. You're observing light, and you're observing the effects of light, how light, by restricting all the light, then you're only seeing what one light source, how it interacts with an object. And you start out with the most basic object, the simplest. So you learn how light bounces and bends. And, even now, if I draw a ball, it's not a boring thing for me. I enjoy observing the effects of light. And it all started from that. And so the teacher, he taught us as the class at an adult level. He didn't expect us to be treated as kids. We had to learn it. And I found out later, this is a Renaissance technique of how to teach. It all started way back then, of drawing from observation. So when I teach, I start back with a similar thing. The way I was taught worked, and so I'm keeping what works.
That's right. Sometimes that stuff's hardwired, it's how we were first taught, and so that conditioning really goes a long way. Well, that's awesome, man. But you don't just draw. You do all sorts of different things. You do graphic design, photography, painting, drawing, play, 3D work. You do everything, right?
Oh, what? In a sense, if you follow an idea, then ideas will give you a direction. That's how I really see it. Some ideas are fine for drawing or painting. Others require 3-dimensional. So if you're open to, how to pursue an idea that comes into your mind, then you'll just follow it to its logical conclusion.
Tell me more about that. Yeah, I'm hearing you. Go for it.
Well, so, and going back to my first teacher, he didn't only teach us drawing from observation, then he taught us the beginning of painting, of color theory, of relief printmaking, and some 3-dimensional stuff. So he kind of gave us a good basic foundation for everything. And then in high school, that kind of got further, developed. And then when I went to college, of course, that was my interest. And then later on, I went to art school. Just because I wanted to learn things faster. And, I knew there was no job waiting for me. I went to art school just so I could learn things faster instead of on my own. That was my whole motivation.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was all in
and you were passionate about it.
Yes. So that was, I just wanted to learn things faster. So that gave me opportunities to learn various new things. I learned more photography in art school, kind of the old way of developing black and white film and all that doesn't really apply too much anymore. With it all being digital, then you just point and shoot. But it's a little bit more than that. Understanding how to arrange things, composition helps you to present your ideas as clearly as possible.
Right. And digital stuff is always going to be there now that it's in existence. So what we don't want to do is lose the history and the foundational pieces of original art, and the way to do it that is hands-on. It requires a specific type of light. You can't just create the light through a screen. There are pieces of that directly link to our mission here, which is, yeah, use the digital side for all the benefits you can, but never lose sight of the real world, the physical world around you, which provides a completely different experience and arguably a better one, depending on what you're doing and how you express it. Because you have to go and do stuff with your hands, with your eyes, with the elements around you. You can't just sit in a chair hunched over and let your eyes be, attacked by blue light and stuff. So there is a balance there.
Oh, exactly. And, sitting in front of a computer, then the physicality of making a work is kind of lost. And and so I think because of that, there's been a resurgence of more handcraft stuff that people are doing, that people really gravitate to. Some of the traditional printmaking techniques that have existed for hundreds of years are really different artists are pursuing those traditional techniques, and the digital is there, but there's so many people that are doing traditional techniques, from the most basic, which is carving on wood and putting ink on the image that's carved out and transferring that to paper is the most basic thing. And then there's other forms of printmaking that are really brought to the public's attention that are very exciting.
When you say, okay, just to backtrack for a second. So after you went to art school and you started getting more and more information on art processes and what you wanted to do, I was looking at some of your work, and from there, you became like an international businessman with this stuff. You were doing things in Bhutan, right?
Yes, that is true. That's
for a long time. Like
that's a side trail that I hadn't anticipated. So after I graduated art school, I went on a tour of Asia with my dad, and Bhutan was one of the places we went to. And so we went to, a lot of different places. The last place was a handmade paper factory. And, it was just a hut that was all dark. And the only light was kind of their showroom. And I mean, that's just a room that had a light that you could actually see some of the stuff. And so they had their first international order, and that was going to England. And I was looking at the paper that was in the crate. It hadn't been sealed yet. And I was touching it and feeling it and going, ooh, and oh, this is so nice. And the owner is watching me do this. And so the tour had come in and gone out, and I'm the only one that's not on the bus. And so my dad comes back looking for me. And he sees me going, ooh, and oh, this is nice. So he says to me, who else would like this paper? And I said, well, just about every artist I know. So he said, well, why don't you import it? So I began thinking out loud that, well, if it costs this much and I'm able to get it over the United States and then I can sell it for this much, I might make some money. And so the owner's listening to me just think out loud. I didn't know what prices were going to cost then. I'm just thinking and brainstorming. So he goes, without my knowing, he goes and gets permission for me to do business with him from the government. So that day was the end of our tour, and we're having a dinner with the tour owner and his wife, who was a government official. And so my dad tells me to tell them what happened today. So I told them what happened, and so they're telling me I need to do this, that you must do this. And
Wow.
and so after we get done with the tour of Asia, and I'm back home in Idaho. So I lived in Massachusetts at that time. That's where I went to art school. But I'm back home here in Boise, and I'm thinking, well, should I or shouldn't I? I don't know. I mean, going to art school, it's not something doing business was not a real interest of mine because, what do I know from art school? But I got thinking, if I don't do it, I'll have regrets.
Yeah.
And it's better to try something and fail than it is to not try at all and then wonder what could have been. So
Bingo.
that was the real reason that I started to do business, and that was a big learning curve. So I had to go back to Bhutan and negotiate, with the company, and went to the government and was working out, trying to figure out how to get this paper from a landlocked country to a landlocked state. And so I did all the research I could. I started buying business books just so I could try to catch up. And a lot of business books on international business were all finance. They weren't actually real business.
Right.
So I had to figure it all out by myself without any help, really. And then selling the paper. So I ended up selling it to artists and art stores, who I knew that area the best. That was the best place to start. And so the way that I approach business is I wanted to present it the way I would want to receive it.
Uh-huh.
And so that's how I thought about business, that if I'm going to present this, I as a customer, how would I want it?
Yeah, and also you kind of learned how to negotiate in real time, face to face with another culture, with completely different economic structure.
Oh, yes,
and
right.
all to the benefit of having the tools that artists need, and then sharing it with those artists in the U.S. economy. Like, all of that is a really unique example of how important it is to live. So living and like doing, not viewing, right? Getting up and going somewhere, talking to people, seeing a place, taking a tour, and you never know how that's going to pan out. And that all started with a trip to Asia with your father.
Right. And, I began to see business over time as an extension of creativity. That, I learned how to be creative in art school. I learned how to take an idea from my imagination and make it reality. And so business is not that much different. You're taking this idea, whether you're selling a product, you're providing a service, and you're taking it into where it's going to be realized. And what I see business as is providing a need or a service. So you're presenting and giving to help people in whatever that service or need is. And all marketing is getting the word out on how to do that. That's all it is letting people know this is available. So how do you make it available? Well, you go to where the need is. And so I had to learn just not only the basic stuff of art.
Right.
And so for the first 5 years, I felt like two separate people. That I was either the creative person or I'm the business person. And
I can relate to that very well.
And it took me 5 years for the two parts to integrate together. And now I can switch back and forth in my thinking. But before, it was a lot of energy devoted to either one side or the other. I couldn't seem to do both. And I've met lots of people in the arts that also became business people, and they've experienced similar things. But now they're able to go back and forth in their head. It's all integrated.
That's outstanding, man. I think that that is an incredible it's an incredible journey, especially for an artist who leaned into your passion. You know what I mean? Because we're all familiar, all of us who are artists who went to school for some sort of art form, we're all familiar with all the risks and all the fears and all the people
Yeah.
that might say, how are you going to make money? If you're going to be a starving artist, there's a reason that term exists, like, what are you going to do? And so I think it's super important when you find a way to use your passion for art to also be your career, because, there's all the cliche terms in the world. If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life and all that kind of stuff, right? But that's the truth of it. And so at something as simple as, I'm going to purchase this paper over here at wholesale and import it and turn around and sell it because it's good paper and I'm an artist and I know there's other artists that would really love this paper, then make a little bit of the living on the side while still getting to do your art. I mean, what a crazy cool story, man.
Yeah. So yeah, I had my business for 13 years until the economy crashed in 2008. But I mean, I learned how to deal with problems. I mean, you're problem solving. So like, for instance, 1 year the factory burned down. I had to switch to another factory. There was another year, there was a conflict between the paper manufacturer and the harvesters. And so, that affects your supply. Couple different times there were ethnic cleansings that happened in the country.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so all of these things affect the supply. And so,
oh yeah, absolutely.
So you start to build up and then you have to maintain. Then you build up, then you maintain. So when the economy crashed, it was after all these different times of enduring all the things that are out of your control that happen in another country.
Wow. Well, good for you for pushing through it.
So you learn how to deal with problems.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, business owners everywhere, entrepreneurs know that it's not like you just walk in one day and you stamp a entrepreneur sign on your desk and then you go, that's all I have to do is sit back and, wait for my check to roll in. If it was easy, everyone would do it.
Right.
Problem solving is the name of the game. It is constant movement in all the factors and different pieces and players in the game and all that stuff. And it's mostly contract work, so it's the hustle and the grind of making sure that things get renewed or that you're getting new clients, and all the stuff that goes with it is a huge part of it. So you learn a lot. So that must have been incredible experience, because 13 years, I mean, of course, the economy crashing, that's awful, and it hit a lot of people in a lot of bad ways, but the amount that you were able to rack up during that is pretty incredible. So
well, for instance,
then it led go for it.
Well, since you're in I assume you're in Southern California. That
Central, but close enough.
So, like, I would try to help. I, being a wholesaler, would try to help the different stores, with the Bhutanese paper. And so, Hiromi paper, I don't know if you're familiar with it. I think they're in Santa Monica. I introduced the paper to them, and then someone went to Bhutan on a pilgrimage and they cut me out. They got it directly from the manufacturer. So,
man.
So you can go see the Bhutanese paper there. It's close enough for you.
Wow. And you introduced it to them. Did you have a contract with them? Like, they were getting it through you and then they decided basically I can go get it myself, or?
No, there was no contract. It was just my goodwill trying to help them, with this product.
Yeah. And then they said, I think we can go and get that. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, basically.
The cutthroat world of business, right? The competition, the competitive side of capitalism, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Rick, after this experience, like, I see that you went on to write a book, and I think I see it right behind you there.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us about that journey. What prompted you to do that, and um, what has that experience been like? Who is that before? Tell us about that.
Um, yeah, that was interesting. You know, in high school, I wasn't part of the smart class. I was just a regular, you know, took the regular English class that you had to do, and so I wasn't, you know, I could understand visually how to do things, but it was harder for me to understand putting the words, you know, making an idea clear through words. And then when I was my first year in college, I took a writing course that was about writing essays, and I'd have to drop out the last week just so I wouldn't get a fail. And for some reason, I was working really hard at trying to write those essays, and I just couldn't. There was some disconnect. I just couldn't do it. And I took it the next semester, and the same thing happened. I had to drop out at the end so I wouldn't get a fail. And so later on, when I went to art school, then one of the things we had to do is a creative writing class. And I realized during that class that the way I write is like the way I draw. And so that helped to free me up from whatever was keeping me from being able to do that. And also at that time, I took an introduction to museum work. And it was at this historical museum in Massachusetts. And the teacher was the editor of the historical paper. And offhanded, she told us one day that she receives a lot of articles written by historians from all over the country. And that for most of them, she has to rewrite their paper because they can't write. And I'm thinking to myself, I can certainly write as bad as the guy that has a PhD. So that really freed me. And so...
Yeah, that's a mental block, right?
It must have been. Because if I can write as bad as the guy that has a PhD, then that's all right.
Yeah, I would take that. I mean, you had to get the PhD from somewhere.
Right. So years later, I'd moved back to Idaho to start my business because it was cheaper in Idaho than it was in Massachusetts. And
good reason.
And I got married, and so I was doing a side job and driving in rush hour on a Friday. And as I'm sitting in the car in traffic, then this voice tells me, write that book that you've had in mind. And so I come home after work and I tell my wife what happened. She gave me a stenographer's pad and I filled that pad up that weekend. And then I kind of organized it. And that was about writing about art, trying to understand and process through just things I've learned, things I read, trying to understand really the nature of creating. And so on my Substack page, then I have taken those. So I worked on this for like 20 years, trying to clarify my understanding, but also learning to write and learning how to make ideas simply understood. And there's various different art concepts that can be confusing. And so learning how to make these clear is what I've been working at.
That's outstanding, man. Like I feel that must have been a really good experience to be able to not only go from feeling that for some reason this writing process, something's not clicking. I mean, let's be honest, that had to have a lot of frustration involved. I mean, when you're taking a class and you have to drop it for fear of failure and then have to do it again, that's miserable stuff.
Well, I did it again because I wanted to get it and I couldn't get it.
That's right. And that's called resiliency and perseverance. And I love that you never gave up on that and then found something. I often tell, just as a little segue, I often tell students of mine, because I coach for the performing arts. I do a lot of vocal work and acting coaching and stuff like that. And I tell people who are really struggling with something, there's a concept, it's just not working and they're frustrated and it could get emotional because it's such a vulnerable experience anyway. And I tell them, sometimes I might not be able to explain it the way that you need to hear it for it to click right. I
Right.
was in the same boat. I had been trying to learn this thing and I just couldn't do it. And then I had this voice coach who said, imagine it like this. And we're working on vibrato, okay, and singing and stuff. And I just was straight tone all the time and could not understand why I couldn't control that stuff. And he just said, imagine it like the air's coming up, and before it leaves, it gets into this cavern up here and it starts to spin and it's going before it comes out. So you're adding this extra piece, and somehow that visualization landed, and I can almost feel that I could see it. I could feel that cavern, and boom, it changed everything. And it wasn't because the previous coaches and vocal instructors weren't good at their job. It was that it just wasn't clicking for me. And so
Right.
I explain that to my students all the time. I am pretty good at explaining things, but you also have to find what a person hears and interprets that benefits them, that unlocks that. And so I'm so glad to hear that you were able to continue to persevere, continue to have that resilience, and then boom, one day something happens, it clicks, and somebody encourages it, and then gives you even more than that, then adds that extra piece of foundational support. You are not alone.
Yeah.
A lot of people who are artists that send articles also struggle with this. And I think that's very interesting from a neuroscience point of view, because we know creative things and such live in the right side of the brain, whereas different parts of logic and reasoning and mathematics and formality live in another part. And so when you're particularly quote unquote right brained, or whatever you want to call it, some things just click differently. So the fact that that's something that is a consensus, right? Somebody saw that in general amongst a lot of people. It's encouraging, because then you feel like, oh, I'm not singled out. I'm not ostracized. I'm not isolated in this. There's nothing wrong with me. This is how I do things. And suddenly that in and of itself boosts confidence to do it better.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
awesome. Congratulations, man.
And so then, that was just the basis for me before I wrote the book, just working on my ideas. So I attend the printmakers conference every year. And so a friend who, I got to know over the years, he told me I should write a book on art for Christians. And thinking, well, okay. So leaving the conference, I began to think about that and say, well, if I did that, then what would I be doing it about? And so as I was driving home, then I began to think, well, what would Christians want to know? And it was, well, what does the Bible say about that? That'd be the first question. And so I began to go through the Bible and looking at various art topics, and even looking up the Greek and the Hebrew words that were used. So that became the basis of, and I also drew on some of what I've been working out. And so I combined that into this book, Art, the Church's Response.
Was that your first book?
It is. I'm probably
I
going
mean,
to
I
be
know that
taking-
you have, like, I'm looking at your site here, and you have lots of books. Like, you have a couple different ones that are here. So that one was first, though?
You might be looking at my father's books.
Ah, I see. Okay. Yeah, I see several different names.
My sister started a publishing company to help get my father's
cool.
material out, and then she's also a writer, and she wrote a couple books. And so I kind of tagged along, saying, you want to publish my book? So since we're family, it was a little bit easier with that.
Yep. And that's your job. You got to support me, right? And you already have the means to do it, and you know how to do it. I'm trying to do it. I need that family discount.
She did all the hard work of figuring it all out. I just rode her coattails. So yes,
Perfect.
This is my right now my first and only book. I'll probably be turning the different materials I wrote about creating, which I've put on Substack. I'll probably turn that into a series of books that I'm gonna call the series "The Books on Art I Wish I Had."
Ah, beautiful, clever.
But I mean,
what is the church's response? What is the theme of your book? Is it specific to the church, like all churches, like the Christian-based faith? Is it over history? Is it different subsects of the Christian faith and how art has been interwoven throughout it? What exactly is that?
Well, I kind of touch on all of that. To answer the first question, our response should be that we're going to participate, both in a creative way and as an audience. And so I kind of, in the book, I'm switching back and forth between the creative person and the audience, how we're going to approach things. And so, like for instance, in chapter 1, I talk about creating. And so in Genesis 1:1, we all know this. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So I looked up the word to create, and that's in Hebrew is bara, which is to create as a process. So if we rethink about this, in the beginning, through the creative process, God created the heavens and the earth. That's a little bit different way of thinking about things. Now it's not a report that we're reading. Now there was a creative process that happened. And even God went through a creative process. So that makes us think about things in a little different way. And then,
just by definition of that verse, the word beginning is there.
Yes, right. Which is
not in the middle. He created this, right?
Yes, and so that means to begin or to start. So at the start, so I like in my book, I break apart each word and look at what the Hebrew word is and then just restate it according to that more clarified understanding. And I don't get super, I don't break down everything like that. But that one I did because, that's the beginning. So we should break it all down.
I like that.
And then, a few verses later, God says, let's make man in our own image. And so I tear apart those words too, image and so, but if you think about it this way, God in verse 1 reveals himself as creator. And then he says, we're going to make man in our image. So part of that image is that we are also creators. We have to create.
Oh, I love that.
We have to create. It's part of what God put inside of us. We can't help it. We have to create.
And look at the world around us. It's a perfect example of that.
Exactly. Everything started in someone's imagination that you see around you and was made into reality. Yep. So we have to create. And as we look through history, we see all the way back to the early civilizations, that same thing. And we're just product of development over time of all of that.
Man, you're striking a chord with me right now because I love that concept. And just to be clear, for the listeners out there, this is not, this is not an attempt to talk about organized religion or any of that, but it is important to know that we look around. There are people out there right now who say, "Oh, I'm not creative at all." That is not true. You are lying to yourself. There are people out there who say, "Oh, I can't
Exactly.
draw. I'm terrible at this. I'm terrible at that." That is also not true. How we feel about our ability to, in comparison to what we've seen and appreciate others having done, is a completely different side of our brain. That's emotionally based. The reality is we can create and we do all the time. And I know this gets a little vague and maybe even subjective in some ways, but I mean think about it. Do you create your daily schedule? Do you create what time you eat and what you're going to wear that day and style? Do you create the way in which you're going to prepare a meeting that you're presenting in? Do you create your interview tactics when you're going for a new job? Do you create the stuff that's going to be decorating your walls at home? That we create constantly, and those are just little things that almost anybody can identify with. That doesn't even have anything to do with the big stuff that we create all the time. Any woman who has ever been excited as a young girl about the idea of a big, big, big wedding someday, they can see it in their eyes. They can see it in their mind's eye and picture it. You know, I guess I shouldn't just say any woman, but traditionally that is, common. But there's different things that we create in our brain all the time. And bringing those things to fruition is the creative process right there.
Exactly. I'd even add one more thing. It's as simple as the conversation. Our conversation hasn't existed before. It hasn't existed in our minds. And us exchanging words and ideas between each other is a creation that's never been done.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love it. See, now this takes me back to other art forms as well, because I always think about jazz, like jazz music being like so spontaneous and improvised, and no two performances are ever the same. Now, obviously, no two performances of anything are ever the same. But something that's rehearsed, like a theater production, if the goal is to get it to be identical every time, so audiences always experience the same thing, but it never can be exactly the same. But music in and of itself,
well,
live music is awesome.
I heard an interview with Yul Brynner about this on Entertainment Tonight a long time ago, because Yul Brynner died a long time ago. And when he was on Broadway doing The King and I, they asked him about his process. And he said, and this was different than anywhere else I've seen or read on how actors approach something. He said that, and this is what left such an impact on me that I still remember it. Excuse me. He wanted to do the exact same performance each time, in the same movements, the same tone of voice. He wanted to have the exact same movement, everything the same. And that he knew that was impossible to do, but that's what he strove for, is to give the exact same performance for each audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, striving for it is a goal that, here's the thing, I might do that. I might have a couple performances the same, but I'm not in control every day of the mood that I'm in when I start, of the mood that other people are in when they start, of the audience engagement, of the whether or not the lights went on at the exact right time, or if a music note sounded different, or the speed was different. Like, there are so many billions of individual factors that go into the creation of a live performance that it's literally impossible for it to be the same, no matter how much our goals are aligned in that. And I think it's beautiful that you said, even though we didn't imagine a conversation in our head, because we're talking for the first time, we're creating it in real time, because our brain is so powerful and creative anyway,
yes,
that we can do that. Otherwise, we would just be an animal, right? Like, there's a reason why human beings are separated from the rest of the animal kingdom in that way. So that is a great point, man. I really love that.
I think that's true.
Yeah. And also, we talked a little bit before we started recording about how important this is specifically to today, linking back to our show and why we do what we do here at Offline Expression is that creativity is being stolen from us right now. There are digital addictive works at play that suck our attention and engagement in, and kids and young people are now getting addicted to watching other people create instead of
Right.
creating. And so their time is our greatest wealth. And if it's being stolen from us, we're literally losing our own opportunity to engage in the creative process. And what that does is it makes us feel good. It's natural dopamine. It gives us pleasure and reward to create and be actively engaged in that process. And when we're not, what do we see? A huge spike in mental health issues for our most vulnerable population. And so this creativity that you're referring to, it's not only something we can all do, it's something that benefits us. It's healthy and it gives us
Right.
good feelings and it, arguably a higher quality of life.
Well, I think that's true. And I've kind of identified maybe a couple reasons for that, which I do put in my book. One is that between ages 8 to 10, a child's brain is developing. And during this transition time, it's going from concrete thinking, this is this, to abstract thinking, this is that. And the way that psychologists have kind of observed this is through children's drawings. And so, that's where, a child is drawing their inner language and they're just getting that out. And there's often these big scenarios that they're putting down on paper. And, we as adults might say, oh, that's a nice horsey. They say, that's not a horsey. And they give this big thing. And you go, oh, yes, I see it. I'm sorry. We've kind of all said that at some point.
Oh, yeah.
So that's at the start of this transition time. Now the child is starting to look outside of themselves into the world in a real way. And they're wanting to draw what they see in it to look like that, whether it's a knick-knack or magazine, or I guess now we're getting past magazines, so there's not so many anymore. But they want to draw what they see and it to look like that.
Yeah.
And so they'll do that. But if they can't make it to look what they see, because they can see the object and they see their depiction and it's not the same, they get frustrated. Why is it not the same? And so over time, they keep trying and trying and trying. And if they can't do it, eventually that frustration will reach a saturation point and they'll say, I can't do this. I hate it. I hate drawing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of kids during that time are also maybe involved in music or dance or, some other creative outlet. And they'll switch over to and put all their energy into that other creative outlet. But for a lot of people, they quit, what I call the quitting stage. They quit being creative. They cut off a portion of their soul because they associate the drawing with creativity. And as adults, and every artist I know experienced this, when they meet someone new, they say, oh, I'm an artist. Now, the person that they're meeting, there's an involuntary response from the person they're meeting saying, oh, I'm not creative. I can't draw, not even a straight line.
Right.
They're not asking for this information. There's this involuntary response that telling them I'm not creative. And I began to think about that. Why is there an involuntary response? And I think it's because we have this image that's put in us that we are creative, and now we have to explain why we're not. We have to.
Yeah, it's like a justification. We need to lower that cognitive dissonance and justify why we don't.
Right. Then I think the other main reason is society is geared to separate us from our creativity. I mean, school, if you look at school, it's not about bringing out a child's creativity. It's about making them conform. Tests are only one,
Amen.
there's only one right answer with a test. But, I learned that there's many right answers to a problem. If you're creative, so like when I was taking graphic design, and I've even given this problem to kids to come up with 100 solutions for whatever the problem was given. Now, when you come up with 100 different things, there's going to be good ideas and there's going to be bad ideas. It doesn't really matter. You're presenting all of these different things that may or may not show this idea as clearly as possible, but you're finding that there's going to be several that could work.
That's how brainstorming works, right?
Yeah.
Cast the net wide.
There's many solutions to a problem. It's not just one. But school doesn't teach that. They say there's
and some
only
may be
one
viable,
solution.
some may not. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So if you're creative, you'll come up with several different possibilities of what could work or may not work. And so, the movie Sister Act 2, the one where Whoopi Goldberg goes, she's the music teacher in the school.
Yeah.
And, there's the girl that can sing super well, and her mother's telling her, because her father was a musician and he was a struggling musician, she's fearful that her daughter will follow that same struggle. And so she condemns any attempt at her to sing. And the daughter has to sneak around her back. And of course, the end of the movie, then mother hears her sing and reconciles with her, saying, "Oh, you're so good. I'm so sorry for what I've done." But that's not an uncommon scenario for creative people. A lot of family and friends experience those similar scenarios. Society itself is gearing to separate us from being creative. And so now you add the digital to that. That's just a further separation. It's all geared to keep us away from being creative. Society does not want us to be creative. They say only the special people are creative. It's not you. You're not special. It's only the special ones.
Right. It's interesting because there's like a weird conundrum there. If it's going to make the money to say you're creative, then you are.
Right. But only within certain parameters.
If it's like, oh, hey, if you just get this, right, you got to stay in the line, right? Don't veer too far away from the norm that we want. And they want to reward the rebel that is super creative, but as long as they stay within the box.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're right on that, man. Wow. Well, Rick, I got to tell you, this was a fantastic conversation, and I'm so excited to get your book and read it. I do love that you followed in a couple of different footsteps. You kind of went where your dad took you, and then you took advantage of an opportunity that was kind of random, but turned into a 13-year career. But then you also kept pursuing something that was a struggle for you early, and then not only did it, but did it all the way. Like, there are people who are good writers that never author a book. So that is really cool. And then also made sure that you were connected with your family along the way. Your dad wrote a book. Your sister started a published company to help him out. And then you're like, I can write one too, and I want to get in on that. And then doing all your article work and your website stuff. I think it's pretty amazing that you also then get on podcasts and talk about the importance of our human nature to be a creative individual. And I respect you a lot for that, man. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for the kind words. I just...
Yeah, man. So is there... Yeah, tell me.
Oh, I just love seeing people wanting to be creative in the area that they really enjoy. And I've encouraged lots of people in different areas to go for it. It just brings joy to me to see that.
Me too. We are kindred spirits in that regard, man. I feel the same way. And not only that, I find that if given an opportunity, see where I live, one of the biggest things, and probably in a lot of places, obviously, but one of the obstacles or challenges that we face is accessibility. And so sometimes people might have a really strong aptitude towards a certain creative medium that they don't really even know unless they're given an opportunity to try. So providing that opportunity, it's amazing to watch people go from, maybe a little bit closed off, a little bit sad, a little quiet or whatever, find that thing, see the spark ignite, see the blossom, just the petals just come flowing out of the flower, and it is a beautiful thing to see. And then when they do face that uncommon or that very common, uh, situation that you were just referencing from Sister Act, watching them say, "I'm going to do this. I have to. Like, I love it," and pushing through that challenge because they must, and then watching the parent or the other people come back around and go, "You were right. This is something you need to be doing." It is a beautiful thing to witness and to encourage. And so I'm right there with you, brother.
Yep, that's
Well,
right.
thank you so much for joining us today. We got to wrap it up, but is there anything I missed? Anything we didn't talk about that you want to make sure that we tell the people?
I can't think of anything really missed. Well, let's do this. Fear is another factor that really gets people. And when I was teaching drawing to adults, this is what really I learned. The very first adult I taught to draw was a family friend. And she wanted to learn to draw. I said, okay, no problem. Let's do a 6-week class. She came over to our house, and I did the same thing what I learned. I shut out all the lights and put a white ball on the table and let her learn how to draw what she sees. And then later on adding objects and bones. And, it was an hour and a half class, just enough time to be able to do something, but not too long. And it took her over 6 months to do this class. There were various issues that would keep coming up. Most of it psychosomatic, just fears that would happen. There was sickness that happened, and I think a lot of those sicknesses stem from fear, the fear trying to keep her away from this. Because she is a family friend, I wouldn't let her quit. She said, "Oh, it's not working. I should quit." I said, "No, I'm not going to let you."
Good deal.
This is where I first discovered it. Then later on, so now she was able to get past the fear. She's able to step out creatively and without having the fear. And so, it was worth me not letting her give up. But the other situation that really drove this home to me was I was teaching a drawing class doing the same type of setup in a church. And so different people came, and this husband and wife came. And, the tables I set up around the setup was only 6 feet away, not very far. You could see everything real easy. And during the course of this first class, the woman's eyesight began to get narrowed, and then eventually her husband had to lead her out of the class because she couldn't see how to get to their car. And then she made the decision after that she's going to quit the class, and her eyesight came right back. Just immediately came back.
Wow.
That was the most dramatic situation of fear that I ever saw. And so the fear of stepping out, especially when we say I can't do it, that is it. You know how much courage it takes to overcome that. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to be creative for some people. And that courage is what needs to be encouraged in all of us.
I couldn't have said it better, man, and I agree. The number one thing to tell anybody who's even willing to try is that they've already succeeded. Amen to that. And the more you push through it and face those fears, you're better for it in a bunch of different domains in your life. From self-confidence to empathy to teamwork to all the things.
Well, just letting go of your fears is freeing. And I mean, that's what we want is freedom. We don't want to be
the very
bound up.
term "I can't."
Yeah,
The
right.
very term "I can't" is damaging to the subconscious. And your subconscious is sitting there as a great mediator with the absolute value symbol around them saying, all we got to do is make sure we aren't a liar. So if you keep telling yourself you can't, you will be right.
That's
And
correct.
as soon as you start pushing through to the other side, what you do is you literally prove yourself wrong and go, wait a second, it looks like I can. And then you can even more.
Right.
I'm with you, man. I love that. Yeah. Fight the fear, people. It is worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what is your website? Where can we find your work and your book?
You can find my book on Amazon, and go to my Substack page to look at the articles about the nature of creating and aesthetics, and that's looking at all different issues of creating. And then my author's page is on the Lanyap Life Books website, so you can see a little bit about me.
The Lanyap, LANYAP, life, LIFE.
Correct.
.com.
Yes.
The lanyaplife.com. Love it, man. And it's a really nice little site too. I like all these books that I can see and the different places where we can get them. So I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much for your work. Keep on keeping on. Keep teaching it. Keep encouraging it. And go see my son.
And you
go say hi to him at the House of the Little Pig for me.
Yes, the House of the Little Pig. I'll have to do that. And you keep on keeping on. It's important what you're doing.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, man. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.